Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this webinar. This webinar is presented by Hurdlr and R3Z Solutions. Tonight, we have Rez Lavoie joining us from R3Z Solutions. He is the founder and president of the company, and R3Z is the leading provider of driver training in the United States. I've actually been trying to get him to join us for quite a while, so I'm very excited to have him tonight. Rez is going to be going through much of his processes at R3Z and then answering our questions live during the Q&A session. My name is Sajad. I work for Hurdlr, a mobile finance company for rideshare drivers, and we are developing an app that automatically manages your rideshare finances and helps you make more money. With that, let's hand it off to Rez.
Good afternoon or good evening for those who are here on the East Coast. Rez Lavoie here. Sajad, I just want to confirm you can hear my voice, correct?
Yes.
All right. So everyone out there across the nation, you guys should be able to hear me clearly. As Sajad had mentioned, I am the president and founder of R3Z Solutions. We are the leaders in the marketplace of quality improvement classes. We're going to go through some of the top 4 items that we found that drivers find in the everyday world of rideshare that help maintain or build their ratings from a customer experience point of view. We always go by the term delivering the extraordinary experience, so you'll see a little bit of what we have to offer today. So we titled this program Top Rated Driver Practices that are as easy as 1, 2, 3, 4, which will give you 4 quick tips. So I'll go ahead and get started. So the first one that we like to cover is from a city knowledge perspective. Drivers that are out there, very great at knowing the city, but then there's also drivers who are not so great at learning the city. It might be new. But one of the consistent challenges we see is sometimes the customers don't feel that the driver knows the city, even if the driver does. So the first thing that we like to address is making sure you build confidence with the customer. Asking the right questions, whether if you're an experienced navigating the city or if you're novice. And so some of the things that you can do to do that is just generically asking them, what area of the city are we going to today? When they can identify a particular area, if it's downtown, uptown, the Hay District or wherever, they're able to identify and build that confidence to the customer that you know the particular area. You can give them a generic ETA of how long it will take, and then you want to follow up with asking them the name of the place or the address. When you go through this route, it will bring that confidence to the customer. They'll feel and know that you know the city, and even if you're still learning, you've given them enough to be dangerous where they think that you know the city better. Second tip we recommend for city knowledge is using Google Maps. And the reason why we recommend Google Maps is because you can put the name of the place and the area of the city, and it will find it. But also Google Maps is really good at addressing if there's going to be traffic, any accidents, things of that nature. But also if the customer gives you a preferred route to go, Google Maps is really quick at recalculating where some other GPS applications that are out there or built into your car might get stuck in the recalculating route. We'll go into the third topic, always asking if the customer has a preferred route. Stay away from the term, would you like to navigate? Stay away from, anything from the mix that might make the customer feel that you don't know the city. You just simply say, do you have a preferred method that you would like me to take? They can say yes, they can say no. And then also going into provide them with what's called an effortless engagement. So remember, your customers are using an app that locates where they're at, requests a driver, you're supposed to come to them and pick them up. They look at that as effortless in their mind. They don't have to put a lot of energy or thought into it. So when they get in your car, same thing in return. Provide that effortless engagement and make it simple. So the more questions you ask them, that's more energy the customer has to give. We don't see that in the industry as effortless. So you do it the route of asking them what area, then the name of the place or the address. That typically will make it effortless to the customer and make it quite simple. Moving on to the next slide. The next one's building your brand. And we go through this a lot because, you might be out there using a platform like Uber, Lyft, any of the other mom and pop ride shares that are out there, depending on what continent you're on. And it's not just about you representing that platform. you're also building your own brand. So think about it as, you're your own business owner. You want your customers to come back to you. In that aspect, you are building your brand when you're trying to get those customers to interact with you and see that appreciation. So first thing is going back into building that confidence. If you have lack of confidence to the customer or showing that lack of confidence to the customer, they perceive that as an inexpertise. So just make sure you show confidence, even if you're just getting to learn the area. Make the experience memorable. And the way we say that is, think about it from a perspective. If you ever had a situation at a retail store, a restaurant, hotel, where you just had that wow experience from the representative there, that, 4 or 5 years later, you still think about that place. Or, people talk about Disney cruises, how memorable they make those things. Try to replicate that kind of experience with your customer whenever possible. Obviously you can't do things like towels in some origami fashion like the Disney cruise would do, but you can do little things like having ice cold water for the customer, having chargers available to them, things of that nature, things that might cost you a little bit or nothing in a sense just to provide to them, but also making sure to focus it in the aspect of that memorable experience. Demonstrate appreciation. So the way this means is more the standpoint, at the end of the day, you as a driver need customers. If you don't have the customers to get, then you're not going to make the opportunity. So we're here almost in a way to serve the customer. Now, don't take that in a way that I'm saying you should take yourself away, but take it in the standpoint that show that you appreciate the customers for choosing the service. Because after all, they're the ones that are bringing you the opportunity. If you stay shy and quiet, try not to interact with that customer, they might perceive that as in you're ignoring them. They might perceive it as in you don't care about them. You just show a little bit of appreciation to the customer, and you'll see that, in fact, that will help you towards getting a great rating. And then ultimately, making sure your customers feel safe and secure. This isn't just let me make sure I'm driving 10 and 2, but also in the standpoint that they're comfortable. AC's on, music might be on the radio station they're more comfortable with. They're sitting in the area of the car where they might feel best. One thing that we see is some drivers, they keep the front seat moved all the way up so there's more leg room in the back. We might actually have a customer who wants to sit up front, and when they walk up to the car and they see the seat position like that, they just get in the back seat, nothing, and now they're outside their comfort zone. So think about those small things whenever you can, and that should help your customers to feel safe and secure. Moving on to value versus benefits. So earlier you heard me mention briefly ice cold water, and that's a term that I call because there are drivers who consistently say, I give water to my customers. They're in the car doors in the little pockets. They're behind the back seat where the customers can easily grab. When you're doing things like that or having chargers just sitting out, we call those benefits or perks. You have that there, the customer can grab it. Now, what you want to kind of do is take it in a way where you can bring value to it. And so, a quick example is take those waters out of the car, throw them in your trunk in a cooler with a bunch of reusable ice. When that customer sits down, just politely ask, would any of you like an ice cold water? You give that 3-second pause for the customer to say yes or no. But what that does is it makes the customer think about what you're trying to provide to them. And if they get curious, they may say, what do you mean ice cold water? When you go to that trunk, you grab the ice cold water and you hand it to them and it's dripping ice cold. It puts that value in the customer's mind like, wow, this driver just handed me an ice cold water versus just having it readily available for them to grab, not even think about it. Same thing with chargers. You might have a customer, you're taking them to the airport, they just see the charger lying there, they plug their phone up, they're texting away, they get to the airport, they yank the cable because they thought it was their cable, they walk off, you look at it like, wow, this guy just took my charger. And that's because the customer in their mindset, they were in the mode of using their phone. That was a benefit to them. They didn't even think that, oh, this isn't my cable, let me return it. Take it back, hold the cables in a nice little compartment. As they sit down, just quickly say to them, would any of you like to charge your device? Hand them that cable and just say to them, all I ask in return is when you're done with it, please wrap it up and hand it back so the next customer can appreciate it. Those little things that take you an extra 2 seconds, those are where you're able to bring that value to the customer. versus providing that benefit. And so we have 4 tips that we utilize off of this front. Personalizing their experience. So, when you're able to make that personal engagement, you pick them up from that game. You say, hey, did we win? Even if it's a team you're not a fan of, when you say that, they look at it as you're connecting with them. Effortless engagement, we talked about that earlier, but, also in the standpoint of when you're doing things to making sure that they're more comfortable, that things are easy for them, that's in their book a value versus a benefit. And then always going above and beyond the call of duty to get the job done. It's not, again, like I mentioned earlier, we're not asking you to slave yourself away, but you are servicing them to a certain degree. When you go above and beyond, they really will truly appreciate it. And then we got this term from partnering with Ritz-Carlton Hotels, radar on, antenna up. Or as we have it listed here, have radar on and use your benefits. So taking those measures where things that are already in there that cost you nothing, the radio, the AC, and paying attention to the customer. They just come in from outside barbecue. Have that AC down extra cold to like 61 degrees. You're in there for a few seconds. The customer says, wow, this is refreshing. A few minutes later, you bring it back to a normal temperature. Everyone's happy. But in the customer's eyes, they look at it as, wow, that's going above and beyond, but also taking a benefit and turning it to value. Let's go on to the next slide. Now, this section are meat and potatoes. This is what we're really known for, the extraordinary experience methodology, as we call it. And so we walk through what's called the extraordinary behaviors. And the extraordinary behaviors are the things that we call the 3 E's. Every step, every customer, every time. And it's not just doing certain things that you're used to doing today, like greeting them, having a personalized exchange, making sure they feel comfortable, but it's a seamless flow throughout. So we go through a process called warm, friendly greeting. Warm, friendly greeting obviously is just a warm, friendly greeting, just like it says. But we also take it next level of personalizing the experience whenever possible and identifying with the customer to say, how is the food at such and such restaurant, things of that nature. Recognizing them for choosing the service, or recognize and appreciate, as you see here as a tip. Taking them and asking them how long they've used the service. If they used it for 10 months, 12 months, you say, we appreciate the loyalty. If it's their first time, you say, welcome to the family. Then we say positive attitude, no matter what. When you have that customer that's out there on the road, they might be a little upset. They might have had a bad day. But if you kill them with kindness, they'll more and more of a chance to appreciate it at the end of the ride. Then we'll go into appreciate them for choosing the service, just kind of going from the standpoint of saying, really appreciate you for utilizing our service. We hope to see you again soon. Obviously, there's also undivided attention, making sure that your focus is on them, not having any distraction of a personal conversation if somebody's calling by phone or anything of that matter. And then following up with a warm, friendly thank you, and just truly, genuinely thanking them again for their service and letting them depart. When you take those steps and you execute every single one with every single customer, every single time, you're going to knock yourself out of the park. You're going to help yourself get top ratings. And, we see it day in, day out with the students that we train. Give me 1 second. Looks like my presentation just kicked off. All right. Sorry about that, guys. And so now we're actually pretty done on the quick tips, just brief high-level stuff to kind of get you guys going. We definitely hope and appreciate that you're able to make use of it. If there's any questions that we can help you out, we'll have question and answer throughout later on. You're more than welcome to follow up with us after the fact, and I will turn it back over to you guys.
All right, thank you guys. So what I want to do is I want to actually spend some time talking about a topic which isn't discussed much amongst drivers, and that's the financial aspect of being an Uber driver or Lyft or Sidecar driver. What I want to talk to you about is how to properly track your rideshare finances and save time and money. And one of the reasons I want to talk to you about that is because, as we all know, The pricing models for rideshare drivers constantly changes for better or worse on either a monthly or bi-monthly basis. And what you need to be aware of are ways to track your finances so that you can ensure that whenever these changes come in place, you're prepared for that. And you're also prepared from a financial and tax perspective, so you don't get hit with anything um, that you weren't aware of at the end of the year. And there are 3 points I like to make when going over your finances. They're track, automate, and plan. And what I mean by that is that you should track everything. When it comes to your rideshare finances, there are a whole host of expenses that you're going to incur. Most of them are deductible. Many of them are deductible, rather. And what you should do is make sure that you have a systematic way of tracking these items. Make sure that whether it's you're using a spreadsheet, a receipt box, you have an app for it, or you're working directly with your accountant to do all these things, that you keep track of everything and prepare yourself for tax season. To make things easier, one of the things I've noticed with rideshare drivers is a lot of them commingle funds. You don't want to do that. And what I mean by that is that you don't want to keep all of your funds, your personal funds and your rideshare finances in one account. What you should be doing is you should be keeping a separate bank account for your business driving, for your rideshare driving, and keeping a separate credit or debit card for your business driving expenses. What that'll allow you to do is it'll allow you to completely separate business from personal and allow you to kind of understand how much things are costing you, what the true cost of being a rideshare driver is, how much you can deduct on your taxes, and likewise, you'll spend less time with your accountant. And it'll just make things easier. It'll help you understand. The next thing that I think all rideshare drivers should do is automate. Try to automate tasks that don't involve driving and picking up drivers or riders. Because at the end of the day, the way we make our money is by picking up more rides and picking up better rides. And there's a whole discussion on tipping and doing other things to make more money, but the core of your business revolves around picking up riders. So try to not do things that will take up too much of your time throughout the day so you can spend more time picking up riders and making money, less time doing everything else. So automate. One of the things that we do at Hurdlr is we have built a mobile finance app for rideshare drivers that kind of does all of this for you. So what we do is we help you maximize your income and really know your true finances by tracking your earnings, your expenses, and showing you how much you owe in taxes. So with Hurdlr, for example, you'll be able to see what your take home is every week and how much of that you need to set aside for taxes, and also how much in expenses you've incurred, so that you know what the real value of your driving is and what your real income is at the end of the day. You'll also get to automatically log miles and deductions. So when you start driving, once you reach above 9 miles an hour, Hurdlr starts tracking your miles for you. So you don't have to keep a log sheet. And more importantly, you don't have to look at your odometer and write things down or use multiple apps to do multiple things. And all of this is given to you in real time. So as you start incurring your expenses, you'll notice that your tax amount changes and your earnings amount changes. You'll be able to see what you can do to kind of make more money, and spend less time on the road making the same amount of money. And then finally, we allow you to connect with all of your rideshare and side businesses. So if you're an Uber, Lyft, and Sidecar driver, you'll be able to aggregate all of that into one app and ensure that you never miss another deduction. And then finally, my favorite part, and one of the parts that I think a lot of other drivers dread, is taxes. What you should do for everything that you do in rideshare is you should plan ahead. Plan taxes with your accountant. Maybe one of the best things that I've seen some rideshare drivers do is at the beginning of the year, they'll actually meet with their accountant and discuss their options, um, and kind of prepare for what things they need to track, when they should make their payments, and what they can do to lower the amount of taxes that they'll need to pay either on a quarterly basis, or at the end of the year. To help you out with this, we've actually written a rideshare tax guide with our in-house CPA that we'll be giving you at the end of the webinar. So you can kind of use that to give yourself an overview of the entire process. But one of the most important things we try to tell rideshare drivers is to not wait until the end of the year to pay your taxes. Try to pay quarterly. The reason for that is because when you pay at the end of the year, and I'm sure some of you have already noticed this, you get hit with a very large tax bill that you may not be prepared for. But if you pay quarterly, you can kind of prepare yourself for that, pay in chunks, and then at the end of the year, not get hit with a very large tax bill that you may or may not be prepared for. And then make sure that you take advantage of all the tax deductions that are available to you. The biggest tax deduction that's available to rideshare drivers is the standard mileage tax deduction, which 99% of drivers use. And what this does is it lowers your taxable income by that amount per mile. So if you're driving 25,000 miles a year, or 10,000 miles a year for your business, you can imagine how much money, how many thousands of dollars you're able to deduct at the end of the year on your taxes due to all your driving. And it's the way it's set up is it's set to account for your car maintenance and some of your other expenses. So you'll be able to use that to kind of help you out on that end. For this webinar, one of the things that we've done is we've prepared the rideshare finance and tax guide for you. It's written by Matt Briefer, our in-house CPA, so we'll be giving you that at the end, and also a copy of the webinar recordings and slides. So you will get that. Now, if you needed to contact either of us, you can contact us within this screen. There is contact information for both myself and Rez, and we're always available to you, so feel free to email us, tweet us, and reach out to us, and we'll help you out whenever we can. Now, one thing I wanted to discuss, and one of the things that's a really pressing matter for drivers, is that there are regulations coming down the pipeline for different states. One of the regulations that's coming up very soon, July 1st to be specific, is registering a vehicle for TNC use in Virginia. So we've created this brief cheat sheet that helps you do that. And I just want to go over some of the rules and regulations around that that will help you be prepared for this and to help you register your vehicle. And for those of you who aren't in the state of Virginia or who do not pick up drivers in the state of Virginia, just to look over this, because I think in time it may be something that will come to your state, so you'll just want to be aware of the process. One of the first things that you'll have to look into when you're registering your vehicle for this license is you want to meet the vehicle requirements, and there are several requirements in here. Not too bad, most of us are going to pass them, but one of the things that I wanted to highlight is that the most important things that you will need, especially for Virginia, is that you will need to have a state safety inspection in the state of Virginia. So if you have a vehicle that's registered in Maryland or DC, but you also pick up riders in Virginia, you have to make sure that you have a Virginia state safety inspection. Doesn't matter if you park your car in Maryland, doesn't matter if your title is in Maryland, you still will have to have that Virginia state and safety inspection in order to meet these requirements. And then also to be registered with the DMV for TNC use, and more importantly, have the identification marker for the rideshare service that you use when you're driving around. There are a couple general operation requirements that you need to meet, and these, for the most part, you won't necessarily need to worry about. because they are all provided by the rideshare service, whether you drive for Uber, Lyft, Sidecar, or any other companies. But there are a few things you need to keep in mind, and those are that you must carry TNC insurance and personal automobile insurance, which means that you'll need to purchase that Uber insurance and have your personal automobile insurance to cover you. You'll need to keep a TNC trip sheet, which is in your Uber app, and it's also something that that you can keep on paper if you really felt it was necessary to do that. But make sure that you never take payments for rides outside of the app. I've seen a couple rideshare drivers ask about that on various forums and groups online, and I let them know that these general operation requirements tell you that there are extremely heavy fines if you take payments outside of the app. And I believe, if I can recall, the average penalty for taking a payment outside of the app starts at around $1,000 per violation. There are some non-discrimination rules to follow. Most of us follow these as well. At least I hope we all do. And these are just standard non-discrimination rules. You do have to comply with laws regarding accommodating service animals. So be very aware of that. You are allowed to refuse to pick up passengers, and this is for any reason not prohibited by law. But if you refuse to pick them up after you accepted the fare, you have to report it to Uber, Lyft, or Sidecar immediately. Of course, you're not allowed to pick up at airports where it's prohibited, but for airports that specifically allow it, feel free and report being disqualified from TNC use if that happens. And you can also drive for multiple TNCs, so that's not an issue. There's a bit of information in here, and I won't go through all of it, on how to register a vehicle titled in Virginia, and then how to register a vehicle not titled in Virginia. So you can look at this. There are reference guides on the side that you can click on to pull up that information that you need to get registered, but make sure you do it because the deadline is July 1st. And then finally, any additional information that we have over here that can help you out. So feel free to use these references. And if you have any questions, you can always contact us and we can help you out. And with that, I'm going to switch over to Q&A. So what we will do is we will go ahead and start taking in your questions and answering them to the best of our abilities. All right. Well, let's get started here and let's look through. Wow, there are a lot of questions. Let's see here. Brent wants to know if you would deduct the miles that you drive to purchase ice water and other consumables. One thing I wanted to mention here, Brent, is that because we are not CPAs or accountants, we are not qualified to answer any tax-related or deduction-related information. What you can do is you can use the tax guide that was written by our in-house CPA, and I'll go ahead and email that out to you, and that'll answer a lot of these questions that you asked that are tax-related, but we won't get into specifically into tax deductions or tax-related questions. Michael wanted to know how you find the Hurdlr app for Android. Michael, we are actually less than 2 weeks away from going live, so the app is not available publicly to everyone right now. We have an exclusive group of pilot users using the app, but if you're interested, go ahead and email me after the webinar, sajad@hurdlr.com, and I'm sure we can accommodate you and get you access to the app before it's released. Doug actually mentioned that Waze is much better than Google Maps. I'm sure a lot of rideshare drivers use the app. How many of you guys use Waze instead of Google Maps or the Uber app? Feel free to just chime in. Yep. Yeah, it looks like a lot of people use Waze. That's cool.
Hey, Jack, if you don't mind if I step in on that real quick. So, the benefit to Google Maps over Waze is, I'm sure many of you might be aware that Google purchased Waze quite a time ago. So anything that's user reported within Waze is considered in the Google Maps app as well. But Google is actually synced with the National Traffic Information Routing for any accidents that are reported, construction events, also major city, their street light schedules. So Google Maps will take those things in consideration as well. So you're actually getting best of both worlds. Waze is only going to be able to consider what you see in the user-reported events.
Great, great. That's yeah, it's a very good bit of information. I've noticed that a lot of drivers that I've talked to and that I've driven with have used Waze, and it's good to know that so that you're well aware. Now, this question, Rez, might be one for you. Brent wants to know, what if your car was used by a previous owner as a taxi, rental car, or police car?
Sure. So from my experience, I can't officially tell you that this is the lay of the law, but from my experience, as long as a vehicle has been completely unbranded, so there's no marks, decals, or anything to say that it's a taxi, was a taxi, things of that nature. The rideshare companies do allow it. Where it might become tricky, depending on what state you're in, is state that if your license plates say for hire, you can't use them for TNC purposes. So that might be your only objection to overcome. But again, this is just me talking from personal experience, not necessarily what the rules and laws are. Hope that helps.
Great, great. Matthew wants to know, if you drop off a client and they ask you to wait, what do you do?
Sure. So, going into, what we call the extraordinary experience. If you're in a situation where you can wait for the customer, go right ahead at it. During my time when I was actively driving, I used to call these instances my paid for break. So, I'd have a customer that, needed to stop at Target for 15, 20 minutes, grab some stuff. I would say to them, okay, I'll leave my app running. Do you mind if I grab a bite to eat, go to the bathroom, things of that nature? And they said, sure. So, I leave the phone in my glove compartment. I'd go inside, grab something to eat, go to the bathroom, come back, the app's still running, customer comes out, depart, go to, where they need to go. And that was my pay for break. So I utilize it from that perspective because I always wanted to provide that extraordinary experience to my customer. If you're in a situation where you need to be more productive and grabbing trips, just ask them if it's okay for them to request another driver when they're ready to be picked up again. When you use that approach of giving them the chance to say the yes or the no versus the assumptive telling them how they have to do it, you're going to catch more bees with honey than vinegar.
Yep, yep. And one thing to note is it's safe to assume that the riders themselves don't know if you're going to be making money while you're waiting or what that rate is. So just letting them know or asking them if they can pick up another driver may be enough to allow you to not wait. So Matthew wanted to know, you mentioned to not take payments outside of the app or a fine can be accrued. What about if the passenger wants to tip you but doesn't have cash? Would tipping through Venmo, PayPal, Square be appropriate? And before I go over to you, Rez, you might be able to confirm this, but one of our other webinar attendees answered this for us. He said that you are allowed to take tips via Square according to Uber.
Sure. So I'll take that. So, if you look deep into Uber's policy, it doesn't mention that you're not allowed to accept tips. It just says that they built the platform, so it's not the preferred method. But it also says in detail that if your customer insists in wanting to tip, go ahead, take it, and you've earned it. That's not exact word for word what it says, but along those lines. So from that perspective, if you have that customer who wants to tip, and they don't have cash, and you happen to have a Square or PayPal reader, go ahead and take that standpoint. The question or the statement that Sejad was going over earlier was saying you can't do the entire fare off the TNC system and charge them through a Square reader. So not to be confused on those two, it's two separate ways.
Yep. Lori actually asked an interesting question. She said, do you recommend having a separate business account for people who are just starting out driving for extra cash, not as a primary job? For example, she mentioned that she'd be happy with an extra $400 a month. Lori, actually, I would recommend that $400 a month that you collect through Uber is at the end of the year, you're going to have to pay taxes on it. Make sure that you find an easy way to track your revenue and expenses. And one of the easiest ways is to just have a separate account. If you think it's manageable for you to keep it all in a single account, you can do it. But what we like to do is we like to try to make it as easy as possible for you. So if it doesn't cost you anything to have that separate account, there's no reason you shouldn't get it. See what else we got here. This is a very good question. Michael again wanted to know, how would you handle someone wanting to bring a beer or alcohol into your car?
That is a great question, Michael. I don't know if you've ever taken an R3Z Solutions class, but this is one of the many things that we go in depth about. We have a terminology we call the "I can help" attitude. So, when you're telling your customers no, it's not safe, it's illegal, might get in trouble with the police, those things, your customer doesn't want to hear that. Instead, we use what's called the "I can help" approach and identifying a suggestible solution. So if a customer walks up to your car, they have the beer or alcohol in their hand, just say, the best I can do is wait here for you to finish the drink. Is that okay with you? Let them take that pause moment, balls in their court to say, yes, that's okay, or no, that's not okay. And if the customer says, no, I just want to get in the car and you drive me where I need to go, reaffirm back, the best I can do is wait here for you to finish the drink. And then this time instead say, if you need to cancel, your customer, I completely understand. So don't offer to cancel the trip for them. Put the ball in their court saying, if they need to cancel the trip because they can't accommodate your request, that you understand. So we use that approach, and this is something that you learn if you ever do have any experience in the hospitality industry, to take it from that perspective. I hope that helps, Michael.
Thanks, Rez. One thing Brent wanted to point out is on the previous slide, the slide with the Hurdlr app, you listed Shell gas as an expense, but it's not deductible since it's included in the 57-cent per mile deduction. Yep, you are correct, Brent. If you were to take the actual expenses deduction method, you could do that. But that screen was actually just intended to show any expenses that come through on that app. So if you're keeping a separate bank account and you're using the Hurdlr app and you swipe for gas, that expense is still going to come through. You would just not mark it as a deduction. So Quincy wanted to know, I have about 1,000 rides in so far, and I wanted to use Hurdlr from this day forward. What would you advise to account for the previous rides? So Quincy, what you can do is, we don't actually recommend that people put previous rides in there, but if you would like to, and if you have the data for those previous rides, you can manually enter it into the app. And that goes for all apps out there that are for rideshare drivers. I believe, from what I remember correctly, a lot of them allow you to backtrack and put data in. Michael wanted to know if we could have a concrete example of how a driver would demonstrate appreciation. Would you have a great example from a previous course, Rez?
Sure. So, I'll give you a standpoint of a particular time that happened with me. Um, I had picked up a customer one time from Pimlico, the big race horse in Maryland, and the customer came in with a bad attitude because they lost, some money. I also knew that they were going to be paying surge pricing to get to their destination. So I like to joke around in the standpoint when it's surge time that whatever surge pricing it is, that's how much more of an extraordinary experience I need to provide. So if it's a 3x multiplier, I need to do 3 times the amount of an extraordinary experience. So during this particular trip, I just kind of started interacting with them, asking them if they could educate me on horse race betting because I've never done it in my entire life. I have no interest in it, but the customer didn't need to know that was the reason why. So I just said it from a standpoint, I've been afraid to do it, because I've never done it before. And so they started giving me their tips and tricks, which obviously didn't work for them during the horse race. But the fact that I was taking it from that level to personalize the experience, that was my foundation. By the time we got to the destination, which was a restaurant that they were meeting up with their friends, I had actually eaten there before. So I had asked them, have they been to this place before? They mentioned no. I started providing them some suggestions of meals they might be interested in. So that was more on level 2 of building me up towards the appreciation. When I got to the destination, it was just a simple, I really appreciate the experience. I really appreciate that the things you taught me about horse racing betting, maybe I will try it out next time just because of you. And I really appreciate you choosing the service, and I hope to see you again next time. So tying that all back together, put that aha moment to the customer. And not only were they completely satisfied, where they mentioned to me before they got out the car, you're one of the best drivers, but they actually handed me a $50 bill as a tip. I was reluctant to take that much of a tip at first. I said, no, it's really not needed. As a reminder, you did have to pay surge, but the customer said, no, the experience you gave me was that great that not only do I need to pay the surge amount, but I need to tip you. So when you have that type of experience to the customer, it makes it lasting and memorable. That's where you're able to demonstrate appreciation. I hope that helps your question.
Great, great. Rob wanted to ask another interesting question. This goes back to the alcohol issue. Can we put closed containers of alcohol in the trunk?
Good question. So, again, I can't be lay of the law. Each state's jurisdictions are different. For the most part, most states do clearly state that whether if you're driving customers around, whether if it's your personal vehicle, if it's a closed container, it's in the trunk where no one has quick access to it, it's okay. But I recommend that you follow up with your state or jurisdiction's law just to make sure that that's okay.
Tyler wants to know how he can find out if an airport allows Uber pickups.
That is a great question. I've seen that happen across the board. So R3Z Solutions, we provide training in 47 cities. Just to kind of give you guys a quick background, what we normally recommend is you can contact the airport security and quickly ask them, do they allow TNCs to pick up or drop off? If your security guard has no clue what TNC is, not used to the acronym, you could just follow up from a standpoint of Uber, Lyft, or Sidecar. You don't have to worry where they're going to single you out because you called and they have your caller ID. They don't have the bandwidth to trace who you are and then put a label on you because you called in to find out the right answer.
So this is an interesting question as well. I actually saw this discussion on the Uber Nation forum, and Quincy wants to know there's a new startup coming out with a way for drivers to make more money by advertising with iPads in their vehicle. Is this something that would be okay with the rideshare companies?
Great question. So when it comes to being an independent contractor, There's the standpoint, is my employer controlling me, telling me what to do, putting me to a schedule, performing to me to standards based on the work that I do. All those different things classify you if you're an independent contractor or an employee. So when it comes to that standpoint, a TNC should not be stating that it's not allowed, but it's definitely not preferred. I'm going to go back into what our methodology teaches, the extraordinary experience, and I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of it. When you look at a standpoint of advertisement, from a consumer standpoint, it's not necessary, don't really need it. If I were to think about my mom being picked up to be taken to the airport, the last thing I want her to be looking at is some advertisement to some, service during her trip. I want her to relax, sit back. So if I don't want my mom to have that experience if she's being picked up by an Uber driver, I myself, when I'm on the road, I'm not going to do that to my customers. But it's entirely up to you as far as which route you would like to do.
One of our users wanted to know what the best way to deal with passengers who want to fit more than 4 people or more than the capacity of his car and would be. What do you do in that situation? I'm sure a lot of us have run into that several times.
Sure, great question. This is actually something else that we talk about in our program. So going back into that I can help attitude approach that I mentioned earlier, using that same the best I can do, providing that solution, is that okay with you, is the approach you want to use. So if you're driving a 4-passenger vehicle and 6 people want to get in your car, don't tell them there's not enough seatbelts. Don't tell them that you might get a ticket. It's not safe. Just say the best I can do is take 4 of you. We can wait for the next vehicle to pick up the rest of you. Is that okay with you? Let them choose, and if they say no, it's not okay, repeat the best I can do is take 4 of you. We can wait for the next vehicle. If you need to cancel, I completely understand. That's really going to be your best approach in any of those kind of negative situations.
Great. Yeah, it's interesting to notice that you're allowing them to make the decision, so they don't feel that you are pressing them to get a second ride or to spend more money. You're basically allowing them to you're giving them options, and you're allowing them to choose what they want to do. And they will most of the time go ahead and get another ride. Let's see, a couple more questions that we have time for here, and then we have to close out. Let's see. Rob wanted to know if he picks up a customer and they don't put the destination in, the app tracks it and charges the customer. So is that correct, or is he not going to get the full amount that he deserves as a driver because the customer did not put their destination in?
The destination address in the app is only for you to use the internal GPS, which, as I mentioned before, best practice, I would be using Google Maps. So if the customer doesn't enter the address, you are safe to drive them where they're at. The app uses GPS to see where you left, where you dropped them off, what route you took to calculate. Sorry, I dropped my microphone, guys. To calculate what the fare is going to be. So I wouldn't worry about that from that perspective.
Great. Quincy wanted to know what your thoughts are on personal clients. Do you know any Uber drivers that have had personal clients, or is that even allowed?
Sure. So when I was an active driver, I used to promote the term UberXRez. And you can actually still go to uberxrez.com today, and it was an appointment booking tool. If you look at the TNC's requirements as far as code of business conduct, all it states is that you can't take business off their platform. So if you have a repeat customer and they're requesting you as an Uber as soon as you arrive because you're the closest vehicle, you're not breaking any rules.
Gotcha. David wants to know, I think David just joined us recently, or this is the first questions he's asked. He wanted to know how you would deal with a passenger who demands that you talk to them through the window while you're driving down the street. Let's say you were picking them up and they were, right beside you, and you were in a lane that has traffic, a red zone, or you were double parked or blocking a driveway, would you, how would you communicate with them that you shouldn't do that? And do you really have to worry about getting a bad rating because this passenger expects you to communicate with them while you're in that situation?
Sure. So safety and security is always number one. So if you're in a traffic situation, things of that nature, you want to do what's the safest and most secure. Now, something that I did as a best practice as a driver, and one of the things that we teach in our program, is setting the appropriate expectations en route to the customer. So if you set a pre-programmed text message of introducing yourself, how long it's going to be based on traffic, and asking you to confirm the address, you have a chance for that customer to tell you specifically where they're at. So let's say a scenario that might happen is a basketball game. So they want you to yell across the street because you're trying to get through, bob and weave through the traffic. If you send that text message ahead of time and they text back, we're at the corner of this and this, then that quickly allows you to properly route yourself that you're going to be on the correct side of the road when you get there. If you can't do that and that kind of situation happens, I would just do a wave signal to them, like, pick up your phone, that, the universal, put your thumb and pinky up to your head, and call them and just say, hey, look, I apologize. I'm trying to get myself situated and turn around, but I want to do it in the most safe and secure way possible.
Awesome, awesome. Well, it looks like that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you have any further questions, feel free to email us or tweet at us. I'm available, Sajad at Hurdlr.com, and you can tweet at me at The Real Sajad. Rez, you can get at him at social media at R3ZSolutions.com, or you can tweet at R3Z Solutions. Thank you guys very much. It's been a great event. We are going to send you all a recording of this as well as the slides, so you will have that. Be on the lookout for it.